Welcome into the CBS Sports Golazo Network and YouTube channel with big breaking news from the EFL Championship. There will be a new participant in the EFL Championship final as Southampton have been expelled from the competition. I'm Chris Whittingham with Nigel Rio-Coker and Troy Deeney. And guys, let's show you the statement first. The statement that ultimately has brought about the change in this playoff, as an independent disciplinary commission has today expelled Southampton from the Sky Bet Championship playoffs after the club admitted to multiple breaches of EFL regulations related to the unauthorized filming of other clubs' training. In addition, the club has received a 4-point deduction that will be applied to the 2026-2027 championship table. The effect of today's order is that Middlesbrough are reinstated into the 2026 playoffs and will proceed to the playoff final against Hull. The final remains scheduled for Saturday, May the 23rd, with kickoff time to be confirmed. That match is, of course, live with us here on Paramount Plus. Troy, I'll start with you. What's your reaction to this news and ultimately your perspective on all of this, Southampton being banned from the playoffs?
Shocked, genuinely shocked. I am also, just want to start this by saying, well done to the EFL. Well done. I didn't think they had the stones to make a call as strong as this. They absolutely deserve to be kicked out, as I've been strong all the way through this. I think once you're cheating, there's no way you can, as the EFL, can go, all right, let's put this on, let's move past it. It just sets a dangerous precedent, in my opinion, if you don't deal with it, and they have dealt with it. So fair play to the EFL. I'm happy for Middlesbrough. I'm happy for Hull now. They finally know who they're going to play. Just don't know what day they're going to play.
Nigel, it's worth getting into the details a little bit here. First off, the games in which they acknowledge, obviously before the first leg when they were caught doing this, they also acknowledged Southampton that before a game against Oxford early in the season, a game that they lost, they spied on the opponent, and in a massive clash in April against Ipswich, was a 2-2 draw, that result ultimately proved to be. I guess the one thing that we don't yet know is the outcome of an appeal. Southampton do have a right to appeal, and I guess they have acknowledged doing it, but they would allege that perhaps the punishment is too harsh. Do you think this punishment of being knocked out of the playoffs is too harsh, Nige?
No, I don't think so. I agree with Troy. And I think Troy's been very strong in his words about it, and I second that as well. There's no way that they should be allowed to play in the playoff final if they've been found guilty. And the word as well we've got to pay attention to, Witty, is multiple. We've done it on more than one occasion. And it's not really something that's accepted in English football. And just to add a bit more to that, it's the cultural aspect of it, Chris. In England, this happened with Bielsa at Leeds United. Then they brought laws in place. The only problem they didn't do with the laws that they brought in place was the punishment that teams would get if found guilty of this offence. Some nations, in other nations, whether it's Germany or other countries, it's deemed as okay and acceptable, where you can go and spy on opponents. And again, like Troy said, give credit to the EFL. It's not a type of behaviour that we want to encourage in English football. It's not something that we like. Some people might argue about how much of an advantage do teams get. And I think in the modern day now, when you look at set pieces, knowing how teams are going to press, how teams are going to line up for set pieces defensively and attacking wise, it gives you a huge advantage as a team, because we've seen how important set pieces have become in the modern game. So for me, again, like Troy said, I credit the EFL. This is a strong stance, and it's the type of stance they needed to take, which will make sure that no other teams will pursue trying to gain an advantage in the same manner in which Southampton did.
Troy,
and also just on that, sorry, Witty, just on that, I think as well, the best part about it is it would set a dangerous precedent. So if you are, I'll use a team, Donna, at Watford, at Birmingham City, a team that want to be in the playoffs, but just missed out this year through whether it be injuries or bad luck or just not being good enough. If they was to do five points suspended sentence and £3 million fine, let's just make a hypothetical up there. Everybody else in the league goes, okay, we can cheat then because it's worth it. They're going to get 200 million if they do get promoted. So losing 5 million, losing 6 million, losing whatever millions you need to, gaining the 200 million makes that all worth it then as a risk reward. So this is wonderful by the EFL to just go, hey, no, we're not doing that. We're not taking cheats. We're not taking people that can do it. And the biggest part, Nigel alluded to it there, but how can you own up to 4 times and go, we're going to appeal against this? Where's your legs? Where's your legs to stand on? You said you've done it 4 other times. So now what? We're going to go, oh, because you admitted it, we're going to give you a less of a sentence. Mind blown. Honestly, mind blown. Sorry, guys. Mind blown.
And I guess the other part of this, too, is Southampton were the story of the championship for the second part of the season. They go on this long unbeaten run. They got to an FA Cup quarterfinal. They beat Arsenal along the way. Does this taint everything that they've done in order to get here?
Yes.
1,000%. 1,000% it does. We compliment them so much on the network about what a fantastic run it is. I said so many times that this is the team you don't want to face. They really are the dark horse of this playoff run. They're hitting form at the right time. But then when you come out and you get these accusations against them, and then you see obviously the picture evidence, and now they're admitting to multiple times, you do question everything about this run. It wasn't done in an organic manner, so to speak, of a manager actually preparing his team the right way, doing and using his video research and video analysis, and then reading the game as it's going on live in front of you and being an active manager making changes. This is a manager that gained advantage by knowing how teams would set up, set piece-wise, training-wise. And for me, it leaves a very bitter taste in your mouth if that's the way you want to go about winning football matches.
And just on that, Nige, how do you take him serious now? Like as a coach, as a manager, even if you're like the ownership of Southampton, let's say the ownership of the Southampton don't know for whatever reason, they didn't know any of this was happening, surely he needs to be sacked as well, right?
I think that it's a fair thing to say, Troy. I think that for me, it just doesn't make the club in any kind of great light. It doesn't portray the club in the way, the manner it should be, in the spirit of how football's always been played in England. You know, and again, we go to the cultural aspect of it. We're not used as a nation in England of doing things of that manner. Yes, players may talk to one another. You might know someone opposite team who might kind of slip out the starting lineup or anything like that, which is fine. That's happened in English football for a long time. But to send a member of staff, or to be aware a member of staff is actively filming the training sessions of your opponents, that's not something that we are used to or want to accept in English football. And it also, like it said, it lets foreign managers come into the nation now knowing that this is not going to be tolerated in English football and you'll be severely punished for it. And it would also question mark your credential as a manager.
You know, the other part to that as well, which you just alluded to there, which is absolutely fantastic from what you're saying. Remember when we was getting grief on the network and on socials that we were jumping to conclusions, and remember the narrative being spun as well was that this young man was acting on his own. Remember, he's acting alone. He was an intern. He doesn't work for the club. But you've just admitted to doing it 4 other times. So is he still acting alone? Are all these people going to apologise now and say that maybe Troy and Nigel know what they're talking about? I'm just wondering.
We're all waiting. We're waiting for the apologies, Troy. I guess to that point, because you kind of mentioned how Tanda Eckhart needs to be sacked here. If you were a player in that dressing room, would you sort of think that the only way that you guys accrued this advantage was via cheating? Like, would you lose all sense of respect for your manager for having been caught doing this?
100%. And I think, you know, bigger than that as well, I think it's a disrespect to the work that the players have done. So there's an element of this where you look at the teams that were affected by it, obviously from the spying. There's an element of this as a team like Hull who haven't found out what they're doing. But then there's 2 other people that are affected, 2 other groups, sorry. There's the players and there's the fans of Southampton. Because they haven't done anything. The players still have to go out and action and do the things to win a game of football. Granted, whether you're seeing the picture now of this young man that happened to go there and was spying and filming, but then also the fans, they paid their hard-earned money to every single away game, and they were getting cheated out of it. So they can be frustrated at us, that's fine, but look at your own club and look at what this manager has done. He's dragged your name through the mud, and if we're going to blame this one individual, then I think that is embarrassing personally. I think it's everyone. But then as a player, going back to your question, I would say you don't think we're good enough to beat Oxford. You don't think we're good enough to beat Ipswich. So if that's the case, I would be going right now on the phone to my agent, tell them to sell me because they don't think I'm good enough to get out of this league.
Yeah, and obviously this is an enormous story with all kinds of repercussions. I guess now the immediate on-field conversation is, what of this new playoff final that we see on Saturday? How strange would this be for Middlesbrough, Nigel, to basically be, via a ban, brought into a playoff final, their biggest game of the season, their biggest game for years, against Hull coming up on Saturday at Wembley?
For Middlesbrough, it's a strange situation, Chris, because I've never witnessed or seen anything like this, especially when it comes to the playoff scenario, which I've been part of in my career. But it's the way and the mannerism of which Middlesbrough handled this whole situation is kind of like they had an inkling, or they knew that they probably could potentially be playing in the final because of obviously the stiff penalty that would be handed down to Southampton. I think it's the mental side of it. If the manager's kept them, like he said, wants to keep them training and going all the way through to the final, it's kind of like they maybe knew ahead of time that this could actually happen for Southampton. So for them now, it's a massive opportunity for them. You know, it really is. You talk about the one game that's the golden ticket to the Premier League. They've got to stay focused. And this is a situation that has nothing to do with Middlesbrough. Like Troy said earlier, and we discussed it before, this whole situation we're discussing is because of the actions that was taken by Southampton and the football club, or the manager. Not the fans, not maybe hierarchy, but the manager that's in charge, that should know everything that's going on in the club in the sense of how he receives information, how he prepares his team for games. They brought this up on themselves. From a Middlesbrough's perspective, they need to focus on themselves now. It's a massive opportunity for them to go out there, to get to the Premier League after a long, grueling season. Many times you could question their inconsistency, but I would say rightly so, with Southampton being basically punished or found guilty of cheating and admitting to doing it more than one occasion. Middlesbrough deservedly so deserve to be in the final, and they've just got to get their head around that right now.
And also, they need to perform. This is a one-off chance that they never thought they were going to get. They were poor in the second leg, as we alluded to on the night, but you've got a one-off opportunity now. And as a player, you're looking at it going, okay, how many opportunities do you get to play to even get into the Premier League? This is going to be a big one for a lot of their players, the likes of Morgan Whittaker, Hayden Hackney, who should be back and available. These guys now have to step up and have to have big games. You cannot do what you did in the last couple of games, which is be iffy, let the game pass you by. But on the other side to it, Hull. Now, I've got a bet with Ollie McBurney, as we all know. I might have to revisit this because I think Hull now become favourites.
Which would be incredible for them, you know, given the situation. I wanted to ask a bit though about the fans here, because the logistics of this have been disastrous. You guys are going to Wembley. You don't know if you're going to Wembley and there will be a game played on Saturday. The fans haven't known for a while either. From how big this occasion is for both sets of supporters and how important the atmosphere is to a game like this, how poor of a look is it that we're 3 or 4 days before the game is due to be played and most fans don't know if they should go buy a ticket yet?
Disappointed for the fans. Definitely can imagine their frustrations. And again, it's something that it's beyond their control. It's not something that the fans are guilty of. They didn't do anything in this situation. And I think their disappointment should fall in the way that their manager of their football club conducted himself. It's that simple. You know, it's not an easy pill to swallow. But again, this falls down to how the manager chose to conduct himself and go about his business in winning football matches. And now his actions have wider consequences to the fans and also to the image of the club around the world, as we see for the first time probably since I know in the playoffs, of a club being expelled for basically trying to gain an unfair advantage.
And then the other part to it, Nigel, if you look at it from, you know, one thing that the EFL could do and like would tick every single box for this situation would be 10-10, would be give some subsidised travel. Because it's expensive, isn't it, for people from Middlesbrough to get down now. Think about it. If they would have knew this, they could have booked train tickets in advance, got it cheaper. It won't be now because it's closer to the time. If the EFL were just to give them a little bit, not saying you got to pay for everything, but just give a little bit of subsidised travel for those fans coming from the north down, I think they would have handled themselves remarkably well. I think to your point about Southampton, yes, 100%. They have... They've disgraced the club and the image of the game that we both love. But I also think on the other side now, they've got to be careful, because if this is upheld, how many teams are going to start to sue? If I was Wrexham, I'd be asking the question. If I was Derby, I'd be asking the question. And if I'm Middlesbrough, I'm still asking the question for emotional damage. A lot more to this story to come, Chris. A lot more.
Well, and there's also the part of next season where they'll have a 4-point deduction going into next season. How on the floor are they as a result of all of this, guys? When you look at the club going into next season, you're probably, as you mentioned, thinking about changing manager. They're 4 points deducted. Do we see them as potentially being now in the championship for a period of seasons? Are they relegation contenders for next season? Like how much at square one are they right now?
Probably say they're in a position that they don't want to be in, but I don't see them getting relegated from the championship next year. They've got a good squad. The question I would only raise up is what players they could potentially lose in this window. But as a club, it's not great. For PR-wise, they're not in a great place right now, and I think they have to do some soul-searching. They're definitely going to have to clean up house and try and change their image. But I think that they've still got a good enough squad to try and be competitive next season. It's not what you want. And again, it's not something you want really associated with your club right now when you talk about a playoff. So, and again, just to push back maybe on what Troy is saying, I understand what Troy is saying about other clubs, but what makes this incident so significant is the fact of they're in the playoffs. That's what it is. They're in the playoffs and they use the same kind of beliefs or principles to try and gain an advantage over opponents while in the playoffs. I think that's what makes it a bit more significant than the regular league fixtures.
No, 100%. I also, I think when you've got so many games in the champ, you can fix that 4-point deduction in the first week. Nigel, can't you? You know, that first week of the championship season, you play 3 games in a week. They can be back to zero very quickly. It's nothing like what Sheffield Wednesday had to face this year, for example. I do just wonder, though, to the players that they can keep, again, to the manager, will he be able to keep his job? I don't believe so if this is upheld. So it's a whole new start again, isn't it? It's a whole new rebuild again. What players, what's the manager, and we all know trying to get the right manager is a hard thing. So Southampton not only have a battle legally at the moment to try and get this back, but they have a battle to be ready for next year.
Now, Troy, you also have a battle to avoid getting a tattoo from Ali McBurney. If he goes on to win this final, you're a bit worried now? A different opposition? You said Hull are favorites now. Are you worried about this?
Yeah, because, there's a little bit of a backstory. Let me back myself
here,
because I know Nigel's going to be
time
and try and make me get it anyway. But I said with Southampton being the way that they are with the squad that they have, they should be favourites, obviously the way that they played in the second leg. Ollie heard that. Wasn't too happy. Let me know. You know what we've got in this room, big man. And I said, I absolutely wish you do. So I will get a tattoo of your signature if that is the case. The circumstances have changed a little bit. But as Nigel knows, a good captain and a good friend and a good human never goes back on his word. So unlike Mike Greller, I will still get a tattoo if that happens.
Shots fired at Grella. All right. Well, this has been an incredible story. There'll be tons more reaction across our CBS platforms until the final comes your way on Saturday at a date and time. Well, the date we know is Saturday, but the time still to be determined. These guys will be at Wembley watching all the action unfold. Thank you for joining us here.